stuff, initial at the bottom, right? And a price, right? We're always going to offer cash, all cash, right? You've got 3 lines for cash, cash amount, financing amount, and total on the truck contract, right? So if I offer the guy $50,000, 50K goes on the first line, 0 here, 50K goes on this line, okay? Now, I want to assign this contract, right? And let's say that my Mayo is at 60,000, right? And that's where I'm going to market it to my investors, to my buyers, right? I'm going to say, okay, I've got a house for sale, $60,000. I need a cash offer, right? And I can go in quickly why I need some cash in a second. But if I find somebody, if I find a buyer, bring one of my buyers, whether they come off my buyer's list, my email buyer's list, off my website, off of a Craigslist ad that I'm running, or off of a bandit sign that says I have a house for sale, I'm going to say, house for sale, worth $100,000, asking 60, right? Then they call, give them all the details, they go look at it, and they're like, man, it's a good deal. Say, okay, I need a cash offer. Okay, no problem, right? I'll go into that in a second. What do I do next? Okay, now comes one-page assignment of contract, right? It's an agreement to assign the contract. So it's a one-page that basically just says that I am the buyer on this contract, and this is the seller, and I am agreeing to assign this contract for you for $10,000, right? They're going to know exactly how much you're going to pay, you're going to make, right? Sometimes people are going to have a problem with that. And you know what? If there's still $40,000 or $30,000, you know, worth of potential profit in it that they have to make, they should never have a problem with you making $10,000. Okay? Now they're not going to know that until they actually sign the contract, because your buyer is not going to sign a truck contract. Okay? They're going to buy this truck contract that I already have filled out for $10,000. Okay? So I'm flipping a contract is what I'm really doing. I'm not even flipping real estate. I'm selling a piece of paper that is contracted with this seller, right? And that's all it is to it. One piece of paper, assignment of contract, says $10,000. Everything goes to the title company, right? The title company will pay you on the closing statement, on the HUD. Okay? This buyer will come to the table with $60,000. Your seller will get 50. You'll get 10, paid out on the HUD, and everybody walks away. You never go on title. Okay? So your name will never show up on the chain of title on an assignment. Okay? Joe, question?
How does your name show up on the HUD? As what?
It shows assignment fee payable to Home Buyers Complete.
You don't call it consulting, just an assignment.
Most of the time, every title company I've dealt with does it as assignment fee. Sometimes I've done a marketing fee.
When you're filling out the truck contract, is there a clause in there that do you have an out?
Yes, absolutely.
And what's your time frame from signing the contract? What do you give yourself to sell the house?
Normally, we're gonna put a 30-day close in the contract.
So you've got 30 days to get going.
I do, but that doesn't mean that you have 30 days to get out. Okay. There's special provisions section where you can write in something, but a lot of times there is a section on, I think, page 6 of the truck contract called the termination option, right? And put $50 in there, and I say, okay, for the first 21 days, I have the unrevocable right to back out of this contract for $50 for any reason whatsoever. They get $50, you walk away. Even if you had $10,000 written down in the earnest money section, they get $50 and that's it, right? So that's one way we do it. There's some sneaky things you can put in a contract that an unknowing person may not know. I just don't like to do things that aren't necessarily ethical. you know, but I don't like to trick people, right?
Yeah.
Because I've learned that in the special provisions, you can write based on the acceptance of my partner. So 5 minutes before closing, oh, my partner didn't accept, so sorry, I can't close, right? So, question?
There is an approach that I use in sub 2 sometimes, where which would apply to wholesales, is you can write in there, I'm not going to buy unless I have a buyer.
Yeah, I mean, you can
And it's really
you can write anything into the
disclosure.
special provisions.
This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes that solves your 30-day closing.
Yeah, you can write anything into the special provisions, explain it to them, and see, that's the thing, is when I go in, I tell them we're either going to buy the house ourselves or we're going to turn around and bring a buyer from one of our investors. So I don't always just go in and say, listen, I'm going to buy your house for cash, straight up, right?
Right.
Especially if you have no intention whatsoever of actually buying a house, right? When we contract on houses, we've got one, you know, available right now in Duncanville, and it's a pretty darn good deal. There's strong comps in the neighborhood. It's a 322. It doesn't need much work for rehab or retail, and if we don't end up signing our contract, we will close on it, and we'll rehab it, and we'll sell it.
But
So-
for those of us that are starting out with zero
Okay.
income,
Okay.
the best way to do that is on that option is to state on there that we're not going to close unless we find a buyer. Should we
You
say that?
can. You can scare people away that way.
Yeah, it's a outlet when your buyer is not up against the wall
Right.
and you have some time to do it. Let's say that they tell you that, well, I got to do this within 6 months. I mean, geez, you could give yourself 6 months to find a buyer.
Yeah.
And it's like the rule of Ron if you don't ask.
You know, and contracts is a class in itself because there's so many things that you can do and there's so many ways that you can write into a contract. You know, so when we write contracts to banks, there's different ways where we have been the lowest offer submitted into a bank, and they accepted our offer because of. And it's funny, you know, we might offer $10,000 earnest money, right, with no inspection period. You know, and our offer is $50,000, and the next best offer is $60,000, and they accepted our $50,000 offer because they were more comfortable with our offer because they said, well, if we back out, we lose $10,000, and then the bank just turns around and goes to sell it to the next person, and they just made $10,000, right? Mm-hmm. So there's things you can do like that. You can play with that option. You can play with that termination option, which is on page 6. Again, if you're not familiar with the TREC contract, go through it and read it, take some notes on it, you know, and bring it to one of these classes, and you know, maybe one day we'll do a class on contracts, right? Tim?
We're running out of time, John. We need to wrap it up in the next
Okay.
5 minutes or so. It's
Okay.
quite fast. I just one quick comment though. Kevin's idea there on you know, not buying unless he finds a buyer. That's a great strategy if you are dealing with a house that, you know, numbers are really skinny. You know, it's a slow area to move properties, high days on market, that kind of stuff. Or, you know, if your seller just won't give you the right price, you know. But if you get a good enough deal, then you don't need that kind of a thing. Close on the darn thing and move on, you know. But if the deal's skinny, it's a high-risk area, needs a lot of repairs, you're unsure because you can't find comps 10 miles from the house, I mean, those are all things that you want to start thinking about. Well, how can I protect myself, minimize my risk? So.
Okay. The last thing that I wanted to talk about just here, I'm just going to jot them down, and we can ask questions. Our top ways that we're selling our properties right now, our wholesale deals. Okay. As I said before, number one, we're selling houses with bandit signs. Right? Handwritten, signs on the street. House value $100,000, for sale $60,000, cash. Right? And we've learned along the way, you know, we put signs out in the street that said, cheap house for sale. Man, did the home phone ring. Right? And, you know, half the people were like, oh, are you offering owner financing, or, you know, or